So after week one, looking at the question of knowledge, I think we get an idea of how philosophy works. Philosophy just develops out of our ordinary experience, um, reflection upon the things that we naturally do, and reflection upon our world and our relation to the world. Um, we looked at last week at the question of, or the topic of knowledge. I mean, that is something that's very deeply rooted in our experience of the world, that we know certain things, that we don't know other things, that we guess about some things, we're not sure that we know them, and we begin to ask questions about our knowledge, and then we find that when we begin to reflect on the act of knowing or the experience of knowing, certain questions arise. That is true, I think, of all philosophy. That is that we begin to reflect upon some aspect of the world and our experience of the world, and certain questions arise, which turn out to be, well, very interesting questions. But as we sort of see that, there's a difference in philosophical questions. They don't admit of the kind of definitive answers that perhaps other questions do, and we saw that with the question of knowledge. This chapter has to do with mind, which is I think, a very subtle, sort of difficult subject. But I think that it is a result of a certain reflection upon our own experience. And you could say that this is okay. This chapter is about the philosophy of mind, and then we say, what is the aspect of our experience um, that we're reflecting on, and what are the questions? What are the questionable things? The puzzles that arise? Well, we to a certain extent this does result from Descartes' inquiries. At least that's the way it's framed in the book. And another way, it just is something that arises from our self-reflection. Um, there is something in the world called mind, we suppose, or at least we have a certain experience, or built into our experience is this notion of the mental, or a mental act, something as simple as a sensation, a feeling, a perception, a thought. And certain questions arise then when we begin to think, well, I am a thinking being. How does that fit in, first of all, with the rest of the universe? The world as it confronts me, the world of my perceptions, my sense perception, seems to be a physical or material world. That is, I am most familiar when I look out at the world with the physical objects or the physical things that confront me. I know to a certain extent that I am a physical thing. For instance, I have a body, but um, deeply rooted in my experience is a notion that I am a thinking being. I am a conscious being, and there is then this phenomenon called consciousness, and then I ask myself, how does this fit in with my view of the world? That is, the world that confronts me is more or less a physical world. I can think about it, I can perceive it, seemingly, I can know certain things about it. But how does my knowing and perceiving and consciousness fit in with the rest of the world? Because that doesn't seem to be physical. It seems to be entirely different. So we can say that one of the basic issues when we begin to reflect upon our relation with the world is we ask ourselves, how do we fit in? How is consciousness possible? What is consciousness, first of all? And how does it fit in with the rest of the world that I seem to be comfortable with, to perceive? That is one question. I would say perhaps the basic question. The other question, I think, is, well, what about other minds? That is, I take myself to have a mind. One of the things that we're left with in Descartes is this notion that I can know myself, and I can know my own thoughts and perceptions. I can't really say, I think, the outcome of Descartes. I can't really say for sure that those thoughts and perceptions accurately represent the way the world is external to me, but it would seem that I have a privileged, private, absolutely certain grasp of my own mental activity. And that, for instance, I can look at a stop sign and I can ask myself, well, is it really red? It's kind of a problematic question, colors, but let's go with it. I can ask myself whether the actual color of the stop sign is red. One of the things I can't doubt is that I am perceiving redness when I look at it. And I'm absolutely sure of that. I mean, I'm sure I'm having a sensation of a certain sort. Now, I am very comfortable with that I have private experience, that I have certain feelings, thoughts, perceptions, and that only I can perceive them. The question is, well, what about other minds? What is my evidence, actually, that there are other beings like me? There are other conscious beings? I can't look into somebody else's consciousness. I can listen to them speak. I can look at them. I can perceive them in all sorts of different ways. But can I know their thoughts? Certainly not in the same way that I can know my own. So so another question emerges out of our reflection upon ourselves and the world and this phenomenon of consciousness. Is the so-called question of other minds, or the problem of other minds. How do I actually know that there are other minds? And this is what prompts the so-called, the zombie scenario that Blackburn describes. How would I know if the rest of the world were robots or zombies who didn't have consciousness, who acted as if they did, or seemed to act in the same, behave in the same way that I did? How could I really know that they had consciousness or not? So two questions, I think, emerge here, two general questions. One is, first of all, how does mind, or the mental, fit in to the universe? How does it exist? How can there be seemingly minds and thoughts on the one hand, and physical things, physical phenomena on the other? And the other question really is, okay, given that there are minds and that I am one or have one, how can I seem to know my own mind, the contents of my own mind, at least my thoughts, my perceptions and feelings, and know them in this absolute and immediate way, not mediated by anything else. How can I be sure that there are other minds at all? It's a presupposition that I seem to make so I get along with the world, but can I actually verify it?